Hello everyone, good morning, good evening, and welcome to our webinar today on the clean energy procurement in Indonesia. We'll be talking about a policy and market overview, looking at procurement mechanisms in Indonesia, and then also have a corporate case study. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Annalisa to introduce SIBA before we move forward.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Annalisa Gegenheimer, and I'm the Director of Global Programs here at SIBA. Just a couple of notes about what SIBA is, if you aren't familiar with us. We work with some of the world's largest energy buyers, particularly in the US, along with their suppliers across the world. And our mission is really to advance reliable, affordable, carbon emissions-free energy. We do this through a few different ways, particularly on the global program side. We have a markets and policy group, which focuses really on policy advocacy, and making sure that the enabling market mechanisms are in place in these markets to be able to procure clean energy. And then we also have the academy, which is really focused on education and training and getting large corporate energy buyers to really advance their journey to procuring clean energy in whatever market they're in. So the academy right now is in 5 markets: not Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, China, mainland China, Indonesia, and we'll be in India for a broader group next year. So within those markets, we deliver training academy sessions, and we also have a digital academy, which is essentially a digital course that also delivers more information to the participants on the clean energy procurement mechanisms that are available in their market. So as part of the academy offerings, we are also doing this regional spotlight series on webinars to kind of give a flavor and introduction for those that maybe aren't familiar with the academy or want to learn more around clean energy procurement in these markets. So today is Indonesia. We also have a couple coming up on mainland China and South Korea. And if you go to, I think Encore will share this at the end, if you go to SIBA's website and to our YouTube channel, you can find recordings from all of our previous webinar sessions from the year. So I will stop there and turn it back to Encore.
Yeah, thanks for that. And so we have a really great agenda today. We are going to start off with an overview of the market and policy in Indonesia, looking at what clean energy procurement options there are, and also a deep dive on the different opportunities for suppliers and companies to procure clean energy. We'll also be hearing from the Asia Clean Energy Coalition on corporate procurement in Indonesia. We have 2 interactive questions so that our esteemed speakers would be able to answer these and provide some insights. And then we end with a case study by Coca-Cola, who will be speaking about their journey procuring clean energy. And now I'm going to pass it on to IESR to start us off with the overview. These are just some housekeeping rules. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. Also, just a quick antitrust reminder about how we have these different rules, and you can just have a quick look over here. And of course, our esteemed speakers for today, starting with Deon from IESR, and I'm going to hand it over to him now.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Deon. I'm from Institute for Essential Services Reform, IESR. We are a think tank based in Jakarta. So, for the next 10 minutes, I'll try to cover an overview of Indonesia's renewable energy procurement policies, market, and options that could be considered for any corporate industries that are willing to invest and have renewable energy in their supplying their energy system. So yeah, next slide. No problem. So I'll start with an big overview, a large overview of the policies and also recent policies on national electricity planning. So on the left-hand side, you see a chart of what policies are framework that Indonesia has. What you need to concern is the maybe you could put more focus on the yellow boxes. So at the top, you have this national energy policy that has recently been updated as government regulation number 40 2025. It projects how much target renewable energy mix that Indonesia needs to has until 2060. And then below that, you have national electricity planning and national energy planning as well, of course. For the national electricity plan, it's interesting because it covers specifically more on the power system overall, not only the one that is grid connected to the state-owned utility PLN, but also on the industry side. So from that UKN, you could see the target of install capacity of renewables will be increasing. And if you see the red dot here, that's the new renewable energy mix expected by over the years. So in 2060, the target is reaching 74%. However, maybe in short term, the target is not as high. It's only like 21% in the next 5 years, but it will scale up afterwards. So that's how the government see the power system will develop in the next coming years. So next slide, Amber. So where are we now? So this is a chart depicting Indonesia map and also divided by province. And in each province, you could see installed capacity of power plants. And on the red and yellow area that is on the province itself, describing the demand. So what I want to highlight here is that you see that most of the demand in Indonesia, if you are not familiar with Indonesia, is focused on this Java island at the southern small island in Indonesia, in the middle one, while the rest of the demand is spread across the different islands. So most of the install capacity in Indonesia, almost half is actually in for Java, and most of the development expected is still also in Java. This creates problem in terms of if you want to develop renewables, Java will be much harder because of competing economic interests, of course, land use and land procurement is more, I mean, expensive, of course, in Java. While on the other side of islands, you have renewable energy that is quite abundant, but the demand is not there. So that's a major problem in Indonesia, and the government is thinking of building a super grid to solve this. But that's what we see is that we actually have enough renewables potential actually to power each of the islands. So next slide. So this slide is about renewable energy potential. This is government official numbers. So we have for the whole Indonesia 3,700 gigawatt of renewable energy potential, and the distribution is, as you can see on the table on the left-hand side, solar is the highest, almost 3,300 gigawatt of potential, while the rest is spread with the second highest is wind, and then hydro, and then some ocean geothermal bioenergy. And utilization is quite contradictory to the potential. Solar is it's not as high. It's only 675 megawatt by the end of 2024. By 2025, we are reaching 1 gigawatt, more than 1 gigawatt, a bit more than 1 gigawatt. While the most existing install capacity is coming from hydro, 6.7 gigawatt, closing to 7 gigawatt, and geothermal 2.6 gigawatt. And most of these are connected to the state-owned utility power grid. Next slide. So what you need to know also on the power market in Indonesia is that there is some, I would say, constitutional limitation that on our constitution that any critical resources, including electricity in this sense, should be controlled by state and be utilized for the benefit of the Indonesian people. And that translates into the power market regulation that aims to I mean, of course, give control to the state. And how the state control is that they will only give permission for institution to operate in a specific area. So we call it business license area. And the only institution that is given for that specific area is the one that have the right to sell electricity. So by default, that's the state-owned utility PLN. So the entire Indonesian area, only PLN has the right to sell electricity, and that's problematic in advancing renewables and also corporate procurement, because you also corporate could also with renewables, corporate could also develop renewables by themselves, or even maybe local utility could be built to supply renewables for corporate, but that's limited because by default, business license area has to be purchased, has to be procured first, has to be gained first by this institution before they could do that. So that's the limitation is the constitution, and because of that, some procurement renewable energy procurement really relies on the state-owned utility to be the one that's developing renewables and giving the option for institution, industries, corporate to gain access to that. And because and along with that, the utility, state-owned utility PLN also given task to create affordable energy for the Indonesian people. So that's also mandated by constitution. And that's translated into policies regarding electricity tariff that is pretty much regulated. So you see in Indonesia, electricity tariff sales has to be approved by executive and also parliament, and it hasn't changed for the last 10 years. So that's good for the demand sector because you enjoy a very flat tariff that hasn't changed. But for the utility, it put pressure for their financial capacity, and that reflects into their planning because they don't have that much capacity. Then they are not willing to take risks, and because of that, renewable energy, in short, renewable energy development in Indonesia has slowed down quite a bit. And most of the regulation reflect that dynamics. So if you consider regulation on rooftop solar, for example, it has to consider also the state-owned utility condition and situation. That's how the policymaker thinks in Indonesia, and that has shaped policy and regulatory framework for this renewable energy development. So yeah, next slide, Angkur. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll be quick with this procurement options. So this is what we think is feasible or available for Indonesia. So for on-site power generation, you could build local renewables for your own use. So that's limited on your own area. And the most, of course, probable available option is rooftop solar in that sense. Second option is REC, renewable energy credit or certificate. This is provided by PLN, and they are the only one that could provide it because because of the market situation. And lastly is independent power producer, IPP. This is only for the one that own this business license area. They could procure or you could say contracted the renewable energy development into a developer, renewable energy developer, in this case, independent power producer. And there are specific industries area park that's controlled by different institutions. So they could also be the one that's doing this renewable energy procurement to supply their industrial parks. So there are the options for now in Indonesia. In short, next slide. So a little bit deep dive onto each of the option, and this is one of the most popular one, I would say, in Indonesia. So rooftop solar regulation started in 2019 and has been changed 3 times, and the last one is in 2024. The regulation in 2024 introduced a new PV rooftop capacity quota. So basically, any demand or any corporate that wants to install, or even household that want to install PV rooftop, has to apply for a quota, first. And that quota is only open on January and July every year. And the quota is also limited, distributed across different systems, with Java gain the most quota, of course. By 2025, we have almost 1 gigawatt of rooftop solar PV quota, and this will increase a little bit until 1.6 gigawatt in 2028. The problem is the quota is really popular and people are just competing to get that quota, and that has hindered more procurement happens for rooftop solar in Indonesia. Basically, people are but the quota has become bottleneck for development. Next slide. And the other one is renewable energy certificate. PLN also has upgraded it into green energy as service. So what it means is basically PLN is utilizing renewable energy power plant that is connected to their grid and remove the green attribute from that electricity generation and sell it as a certificate. And they use this APX tracking system to ensure that there is no double counting. So you see that this is an option. However, of course, limitation is that there is no additionality from this. It's basically utilizing generation from existing renewable energy power plant. So uh, there are some that doesn't really, see this as an option, as a way to procure renewable energy or claim it as a renewable energy supply for their corporate. So that's one of the negative or drawbacks for this. Next, I think this is last slide. And lastly is I want to talk about the future options. Actually, Indonesia we actually have power wheeling for regulation available. So it's been described in Ministerial Regulation number 11 2021, titled Joint Utilization of Transmission Network. And it has been also highlighted again in the new National Energy Policy, the Government Regulation 40 2025, as swap transaction. However, of course, if this framework is there, the implementation is not really clear yet. So that has hindered this option to be implemented. So basically, what you need to do, what you need to have for Indonesia to implement this is for there to have a power system cost transparency, and there should be some reorganizing on the reform on electricity tariff as well as independent regulator to make it succeed. But the future is there. The future of power wheeling could be an option for corporate procurement, but yeah, some challenge remain. That's what I want to say. And with that, I'll close and give it back to Uncle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deon. And we're going to be moving into our first interactive question and invite all of the speakers to kind of give their inputs on this, and just go an overview of what challenges are being faced by corporates who are looking to procure clean energy in Indonesia.
Should I?
Sure.
Okay, I'll give a start. Maybe other speaker could jump in afterwards. So we also have these questions asked into some of the workshop that we've done with SIBA in the past couple of months. And from the corporate perspective, what they see as problem is two only, regulation, and second one is cost. And regulation is very understandable because, as I mentioned before, for them the option is basically the easy one is rooftop solar PV or renewable energy certificate. And both of those are especially for rooftop solar, as I mentioned before in my presentation, is limited in terms of the quota. And basically, if you just thinking about building rooftop solar now, then you have to wait until January next year to get your rooftop quota, and that will be a highly competing quota to be get. So you basically have to prepare, and there will be a high chance that you won't get the quota by that January, and then you'll need to wait by July. So that's limitation regulation. But overall, I guess this regulation we from IESR we have tried to advocate for increasing the rooftop quota easily, but the government chose to do it in more conservative way because considering as well the impact of the state on utility. So this is again back to I think I mentioned in my slides the limitation in our power market that relies on the state on utility and because they are also doing some public service obligation and cheap tariffs, electricity tariff, and so on. So government's trying to balance that with the new with any kind of like regulation that allows for renewable energy to be built by other parties. Because that basically will maybe limit the financial situation in the future for the state-owned utilities. So that consideration of how the government sees any kind of regulation moving forward. So not only just for rooftop solar, but any kind of in the future. And I will say also that that's also one of the reasons why the power wheeling implementation has not been really discussed well. Otherwise, that will be really good options for any corporate to build their own renewables in faraway places and using PLN transmission to use that as to supply it to their own facilities. So yeah, regulation will be one, and I will say that beyond above that is the political willingness to make a transformation of the system, because that will be needed before we introduce a more higher rooftop solar quota, power wheeling, and so on. I'll stop there.
Emma, do you want to, Emma and Ayu, if you have any insights over here?
Thank you, Encore, and thank you, Deon. I think actually my slides will go into this question a little bit, but would very much second everything that Deon has shared here. Regulation and cost effectiveness are major concerns that we hear from buyers.
Okay, great. And I guess we could then move into your speaking session, and I'll just change the slides. And yeah, over to you, Emma.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Encore, and thank you very much for your presentation, Deon. My name is Emma Saraff. I'm here representing the Asia Clean Energy Coalition, or ASEC. First, wanted to very much thank SIBA for inviting us to speak on this webinar. We're pleased to give the ASEC perspective on corporate green energy procurement in Indonesia and some considerations for policy. To say, for those of you who are encountering ASEC for the first time, ASEC is a private sector coalition based in Asia, focused on enabling transformative policy for renewable energy procurement, again, in Asia. We were co-founded by three NGOs, the World Resources Institute, the Global Wind Energy Council, and Climate Group, who also convened the RE100 campaign. Want to acknowledge the work of WRI Indonesia, who we work with very closely when it comes to work in Indonesia. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and move into the first slide. Everything that I'll be sharing here today is informed by the perspectives of ASEC members. So very happy to share with you first what we've been hearing from buyers when it comes to corporate procurement in Indonesia, including some of the challenges that we've been hearing about in response to the previous question. And then I'll move into a snapshot comparison of Indonesia vis-a-vis other markets in the region before ending with some key areas for possible consideration for policymakers when it comes to improvements that could be made for procurement. So first to say that ASEC does not advocate for any specific mode of procurement. Instead, what we advocate for is a menu, a diverse menu of accessible and cost-effective options in recognition of the fact that different buyers have different needs. And indeed, in Indonesia, what we've seen is that expanding access across the board is key to meeting demand for green power. And because different buyers, again, have different needs in Indonesia, it's important to improve each of the access or each of the options and the access to them in turn. Just a few words on what are the challenges and what buyers see when it comes to different procurement options in Indonesia. And much of this has already been covered by Deon, so I will endeavor to be brief. But as Deon shared, we know that on-site generation is available, but there are important restrictions in place that limit access. So these are, of course, quotas. There are also issues with grid connection and so on. Unbundled RECs, as we know, are available, but there are important concerns from buyers here, particularly the a lack of additionality. We do know, of course, about the green energy as a service, dedicated sources, the green tariff offered by PLN from 2024. This is available, but it is a novel option. And in terms of buyer awareness, it could be improved. So there's still knowledge sharing that needs to happen here. And there are also questions around transparency. As Deon shared, offsite PPAs are, practically speaking, barred by regulation. And this is a major concern for buyers in the ASEC membership. When it comes to primary considerations for buyers, we know that electricity cost and the ease of permitting, the complexity of permitting, are two very important considerations. So what we hear repeatedly is that options that are affordable, that are straightforward, that is easy to transact, and sizable at scale with relation to individual company targets are the most attractive options. Simply put, what we've heard in terms of simplicity of procurement is that unbundled RECs are the easiest to procure in Indonesia, but they're not always the preferred option, particularly because they're not considered to be as impactful as other options. What we know from our work in other jurisdictions is that corporate PPA, flexible, bankable arrangement, is considered to be a very impactful option, but of course, due to the regulatory challenges in Indonesia, is very difficult to, practically speaking, pursue in Indonesia at present. So let's move on to the next slide here, thinking about how Indonesia compares with some of the other markets that ASEC does operate in. So as you can see at a glance here, when it comes to the availability of different procurement options, Indonesia is seen to be lacking in comparison with some of its regional peers. So this is the case of Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand. We know, for instance, that in Thailand, the UGT2 offers bundled RECs to buyers. In Vietnam, there was, of course, the launch of the DPPA decree in July 2024 last year. And then Malaysia has several options, including the Corporate Renewable Energy Supply Scheme, or CRESS. This is, of course, something that allows for TPA as well. So to say that all of these options have produced considerable interest and can be said to be attracting investment into these countries. So we do consider that the lack of options in Indonesia for procurement is actually an economic competitiveness issue. And we said as much in an op-ed that was published in the Jakarta Post in September of this year, together with IEFA and with RE100, making the case, again, that if Indonesia does not expand the suite, the menu of options, then it can be at risk of losing out to some of its peers in ASEAN when it comes to investment. So the question here is, what do we suggest to policymakers, to the policy world, in order to attract this investment and to expand the suite of procurement options? And I'll go into that now in the next slide. So here we have 4 buckets of different suggestions for improvements, for policy improvements that Indonesian policymakers could consider. These are associated with each of the different types of procurement. So beginning first with improvements to unbundled renewable energy certificates. We know that these were launched as a corporate product by PLN, not necessarily as an instrument endorsed and regulated by the government, and this has several important implications. There's limited supervision to ensure price transparency. And as a result, there's no competition in the REC market. And importantly, no national rules for RECs. This is particularly key because no national rules for RECs, prevents harmonization with neighboring countries' rules. And this is obviously a prerequisite for the creation of an integrated regional REC market. Therefore, our first 2 recommendations are for these unbundled RECs to be formally recognized within Indonesian law, and then for there be some level of supervision with regards to the price transparency, the integrity from an environmental perspective, and importantly, harmonization across the ASEAN region. We also know that the government and PLN have never issued residual emission factors and have not updated the grid emission factor since 2021. This has led to a kind of complicated situation when it comes to reporting for corporates, in that they might be using outdated data. So our third recommendation in this bucket is to more regularly update emissions factors and residual emission factors. Moving on to the green tariff options, this is in connection with GEAS DS, Green Energy as a Service, dedicated sources. Here we have 2 pinpoint recommendations for improvement. The first is for the government to release the list of power plants under GEAS DS for transparency reasons. And the second is, knowing that some buyers are interested in locational matching, to expand the geographic coverage of these plants as well. Moving on to the third bucket of options, this is with regards to on-site generation. And here we have a handful of different recommendations, which were also covered by Deon, so great to see some overlap there. First, we always talk about removing caps, removing limitations, arbitrary limitations on procurement. So in this case, it would be the removal or the increase of the caps on on-site generation that currently exist. We know that clarifying allocation of EACs is very important to buyers to ensure that there's clarity in that process and no double counting. So we would want to make sure that that is taking place. Also eliminating the fiscal hurdles for the OPEX model that currently exists and updating regulations around CapEx. And then last but not least, removing some of the regulatory hurdles that Deon also addressed when it comes to ground mounted and floating solar in particular. As we know that for rooftop solar, there's already some discussion around this in existing regulation. So this is focused on ground mounted and floating solar. Last but very much not least, talking about the enablement of off-site procurement, CPPA. As I mentioned previously, this is considered by many buyers to be a particularly bankable, flexible arrangement possible in many different jurisdictions today. So we offer some suggestions for policymakers on how to really enable this. The first is to update the regulations that prevent off-site PPAs, i.e. the regulations that make it possible, that make it so that PLN is the sole provider of electricity, the sole entity able to sell electricity outside, of course, of Willis holders of those not connected to the grid. The second is to allow those Willis holders, the local public power providers, to rent the grid to buyers. And the third is to really streamline the permitting process. What we've heard from buyers in Indonesia and in other countries is that undue complexity when it comes to permitting and contracting can really slow down the process. So simply put, streamlining this would also make it possible for procurement to flow more easily from the buyer perspective. So these are our recommendations for procurement in Indonesia. I have one final slide, so let's move on to that. To say that everything that has been discussed today in this presentation will be expanded on in a paper that we are very happy to be collaborating on with Climate Group R100 and the Clean Energy Investment Accelerator out of WRI. So please stay tuned for this forthcoming ASEC paper, which will cover corporate buyer preferences for green power in Indonesia and also additional expanded ideas around options for policymaker consideration. This paper will launch in early 2026, so hope that many of you will get a chance to read it. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak, and I very much welcome any feedback. Thank you. Back to you, Ed.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma. Does anyone have any questions for Emma? You can post them in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask. If not, we could move to the second question, which is how does the MEMR regulation number 5 of 2025 impact corporate procurement of clean energy in Indonesia? And Deon, we could maybe start off with you and then come to you, Emma, and then IU.
Yeah, so this regulation is regulating specifically a PPA agreement between independent power producers with the buyers, in this case, PLN most of the time. So it has an improvement compared to the previous regulation, as renewable energy now has a deep dispatch and also clear offtake, assurance, I would say. So that's the benefit of this for renewable energy development. However, for this to be able to impact corporate procurement, of course, there is still that limitation in the regulation in terms of that. That means that this is only the beneficiary of this is PLN and perhaps other business license owner supplying electricity for a specific industrial park to be to have a more clear regulation that's mandating this PPA. And for this to be benefit to benefit the corporate, then again the limitation is on this off-grid PPA things that Emma just talked about, or in my slide I mentioned it as a power wheeling. Implementing it will be key for any corporate or any industry to take benefit of this. So there will still need more regulation that determine this implementation, how would that means for the owner of transmission, for example, what tariff should be there and whether that will be attractive for the corporate. That's the next key uh, uh, homework for the government to regulate if this want to make impact for corporate. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Excellent. Just to note, very much again, second everything that Deon has shared here. I think from the ASEC perspective, we do view this regulation as an important step forward. It does standardize, clarify some of the key provisions for renewable energy PPAs. As Deon just mentioned, it does introduce as well clear risk sharing between developers and PLN, and it provides important mechanisms like deemed dispatch, deemed commissioning. Ultimately, this helps reduce revenue uncertainty, which we know is also a concern for developers, and it allows for longer contract terms and more flexible project structures. To note as well that in addition to buyers, we do have developers in our membership within ASEC. And what we've heard from developers is that this doesn't immediately unlock direct offsite PPAs, as Dion also mentioned, but it does improve the overall bankability of renewable energy projects. So developers could be considered to be more willing to offer structured deals or green tariffs that are backed by real generation as a consequence of this regulation. So fundamentally, this does improve the foundation and it could expand future options for procurement, but it doesn't really address or remove the core barriers as of yet. I'll pause there, but I do know that some of my WRI colleagues are on the call. So if there's anything to add or anything that I've missed, please feel free to jump in or refer others. I'll pause here.
Yeah, we would love
Yes,
to hear
thank
from
you,
you.
Emma.
Sorry,
Hi,
go ahead.
Ankur.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yes. Um, no additional add from me, Ankur. I think that was already like on a very good explanations, both from Dion and also from Emma. Thank you.
Okay, great. And I think we could, any other, if any other colleague of yours from WRI had any comments on this, we could ask them to share, or we could move to the next session then. Okay, we could move to the next speaking engagement with Ayu from Coca-Cola, and we would now invite her to speak. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankur. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Ayu. I'm the Sustainability Manager of Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners Indonesia. Thank you to the team for extending the invitation to share a little bit about clean energy procurement, specifically our experience in Indonesia. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick introduction of our sustainability pillars in Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners Indonesia. This is actually a group target. So these pillars are what we call our This is Forward. So as you can see, we have 6 pillars here. They are climate, drinks, packaging, water, supply chain, and society. Climate, of course, being also one of the most important pillars of sustainability, where we have our zero emissions by 2040 target. We have initiatives across scope 1, 2, and 3. It's also related to all of the other pillars in This is Forward, as they are interacting with each other. In drinks, where we have zero sugar options in our beverages for our customers. We have packaging recycling where we invest in collection and recycling in the collection network, as well as the community-based waste bank. We also have our initiatives in water, where we ensure that we return 100% of the water to the environment and communities from the water that we use in our manufacturing. In supply chain, we also ensure that the supply chain that we use is compliance of suppliers within the sustainability standards, and also in society, where we ensure or we grow together with the community and environment that is surrounding our CCEP community. Next, please. So this is just the specific targets of our climate pillar. So as you can see, we have an overall 2040 net zero target across our entire value chain. Second, we also have a 2030 carbon reduction target in which we target to have a 30% reduction compared to our 2019 baseline. And third, we have a renewable electricity target where we aim to achieve 100% renewable electricity across markets by 2030. And last one, we also have our targets for our suppliers, where we aim to have 100% of our carbon strategic suppliers to set science-based targets by 2025. Next, please. Okay, so this is just a quick view of how we aim to achieve renewable electricity, 100% renewable electricity in Coca-Cola Europacific Partners Indonesia. So for renewable electricity, we focus on two main types of investments, which are in rooftop solar panel as well as in RECs or renewable energy certificate. So as of 2024, CCEP Indonesia has achieved 29.5% of our electricity coming from renewable sources. So from our plants, we already have installed rooftop solar panels in 3 plants. So these are in Bekasi one, in Pasuruan, and in Semarang. These are in Java Island. The total capacity of these rooftop solar panels are a total of over 10.7 megawatt peak. And this is it's quite a long-term investment where the first one has been our rooftop solar panel in Bekasi one, operating since 2021, where we then expand to Pasuruan and Semarang, and hopefully more in the future. And for renewable energy certificate, this is also one of our purchases for renewable electricity, where we purchase we commit to purchase total of 90 gigawatt hour of REC from PLN for the duration of 2023 to 2025. So these are the why, just to explain why we choose these specific procurement options. Of course, we have many considerations, but most have also been explained by Deon and Emma. Firstly, there are the main focus of firstly cost efficiency. We don't only want to use this investment, we also ensure that the return of investment is also keeping our business running. And we also think that there is ease of control in maintaining our capex investment, especially for rooftop solar panel, and also operational control for our REC purchase. And second, there's also consideration of, as mentioned, is the ease of permit or regulatory compliance. So this is also something that would be very helpful for us if this is developed or improved in the future, where we have more clarity of regulation in terms of business license, construction, and operational permit. Especially this is especially helpful for rooftop solar panel, and also any clear requirements for REC purchase. And thirdly, we choose the procurement options that are quickly accelerating our RE target achievement. So the rooftop solar panel and also the REC, especially as CCP is part of the RE100 signatory, we have to make sure that our procurement options are within those requirements. So this consideration, as well as the length of contract agreement and ensuring the supply availability, helps us to ensure that we can make a long-term investment, so we can accelerate the RE target achievement for CCP. And lastly is also the consideration of involvement in our RE development for Indonesia, because this investment would demonstrate the demand for renewable electricity and help to stimulate the development of RE projects in Indonesia which will be impactful for longer term contracts. I think I have one more slide. So from CCEP Indonesia, we think that multi-stakeholder collaboration will be essential for the future of renewable energy investment, especially as already mentioned, in terms of removing barriers and exploring opportunities in renewable energy investment, which is going to require coordinated action across government, utilities, and private sector in Indonesia. So these are the three things that we think the collaboration will be most important in. Firstly, is the transparency on pricing and quota in renewable energy investment. This is going to be very helpful for corporate to be able to plan our investment, and the cost structure is going to be able to help us make the right decisions for our business, so we can plan and we can incorporate our sustainability strategies within our business plan. And the second is the integration of regulatory and administrative processes to access renewable energy, in which it's going to be much easier and make for a smoother process where regulatory and administrative processes are integrated and made easier for corporate buyers. And thirdly, of course, is the diversification of renewable energy procurement options, in which the more available procurement options would be better for us to diversify our investment, and also for us to have different options for different size and as well as scenarios. So I think that's all from my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayu. And I believe we have a question in the chat on how do you engage with your suppliers on their targets, and are you seeing your suppliers in Indonesia following a similar path for RV procurement, such as rooftop solar and RECs?
So the suppliers that we engage in are what we call the carbon strategic suppliers. So we map our suppliers according to which ones we engage with most, and we see that the path is some of them are already on their way to also follow for renewable energy procurement. Some of them are still considering. I think it is also the same concerns for corporate buyers as a whole. Some of them maybe would still be thinking, how is it worth a long time investment, and is it going to be something that we really require for, is, for example, just one of the buyer that require us to do this, but we continuously engage with our supplier that we are able to in previous, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we think we did an engagement workshop in which we share with them the importance of decarbonization and also renewable electricity purchase. So it's also capacity building to encourage them to explore these options, as well as showing them that in the future there will be a need from other buyers as well to engage, to purchase renewable electricity. So it will not just be CCP Indonesia's requirement, but also this is something that, for example, within the agenda of the government. So that's how we engage or try to encourage our suppliers to build their path to decarbonization and renewable electricity.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I would like to ask Deon and then Emma after that upon, if we kind of just had to summarize like 2 or 3 key takeaways from your speaking sessions, just curious, how you would highlight those for people, especially on the call. Somebody could be a new buyer who's just looking to procure, and just your valuable insights would be great. So Deon, to start with you.
Yeah, well, so for the buyers, I'll say that Indonesia has the most potential in terms of renewable energy, and buyers presents actually an opportunity for Indonesia as a country to collaborate together to build and take advantage of that renewable energy potential. Government, as I mentioned in my slide, government official number shows 3,700 gigawatt. That's 37 times our current installed capacity of close to 100 gigawatts. So we have more than enough actually to satisfy any clean energy demand requirement for the next decades, even until 2100, you name it, because it's just more than enough. I think it's the most in Southeast Asia. And even though currently our renewable energy procurement options, as maybe have been showcased by Emma and also shown by IU, the most feasible one is on-site renewables in form of rooftop solar. That will also need to be expanded, of course, as suggested by Emma, as well as REC or green energy as Saraff with dedicated source. There is actually an opportunity to do this off-site PPA because regulation is there and it's actually mandated the state-owned utility or any entity that own transmission to have a SIM for this joint utilization of this transmission. So that's that has been laid in this regulation already. So the case is only on this implementing regulation, tariff transparency and adjustment for each of the party. And with this, I'll say opportunity is very high. And I'll say that some of the ministries has championed this regulation. So it's just a little bit of a nudge for them to put more thoughts for, we give them more weight for their thoughts to really put forward this and this regulation and make it official. So how do we do that? I guess we have these buyers' interests and the existing industries that they're working on this area procurement with high target already. And how do we make that demand more feasible? And this feasibility has to be consistent as well. So that any stakeholders, policymakers related to this will get the measures and make the confidence to push through with this offset PPA, power wheeling, joint transmission, utilization unit. But that's the same thing as a way for unlocking more diverse option for corporate to procure renewable. That's from me. Thank you, Ankur.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Emma.
Thank you, Angkor. It's been so wonderful to share this virtual room with you all and with Ayu and Deon. And once again, could not agree more with what Deon has just shared. It's really exciting to see the incredible potential for renewable energy that Indonesia has. And we do see as ASEC that if procurement can be diversified and if buyer involvement in procurement can be made visible, this does deliver real decarbonization for countries and communities, which is really the bottom line here. What we want to do is to deliver real decarbonization to those that have renewable energy targets and to countries and communities affected by climate change. We see this as one of the most important tools in the toolbox, in that when you have diverse, accessible methods for procurement in a given country or jurisdiction, this sends a clear signal to developers to develop, and then the new projects add to regional grids. So fundamentally, again, communities globally can really benefit from more visible, increased, more accessible procurement for corporate energy buyers, knowing the demand of corporate energy buyers and the scale at which they procure in particular. So really want to highlight how important this is for climate. And also to say, just to build on what I mentioned in my presentation, that this is also an important economic opportunity for Indonesia. In these days, economics are really a key consideration, and indeed energy policy in many cases is also investment policy. So we know, for instance, that Indonesia has Danantara, the sovereign wealth fund, launched earlier this year, and this is really a timely opportunity to make sure that we're able to attract investment to Indonesia and really build on the economic potential of renewable energy as well. So we'd really want to emphasize those 2 points, both the importance for the environment and the economic opportunity for Indonesia. I'll pause there. Thanks all.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think there's a question for you in the chat on what is your biggest challenge in achieving your net zero target with existence of regulations in Indonesia for clean energy?
Yes, so I think this is something I briefly mentioned in my presentation as well. So with regards of regulatory, of course, if there's still the challenge of ease of permit or clarity of regulation and the integratedness of having all of those regulations to make it easy for us to access these procurement options, which we hope can be developed in the future. And secondly, of course, for different procurement options and with regards to their cost efficiencies, which we think will be important for us to, if we are able to have for example, more transparency in the pricing and quota considerations for these options, because these are going to be important considerations for our investment decisions, especially in the long term. So those are, I think, the biggest challenges for our target.
Great, great. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, we would like to just invite everyone on the call to connect with SIBA on our website, on X, and on LinkedIn. And we thank you everyone for joining. We thank you, Ayu, Emma, and Deon. Your insights were really, really appreciated today, and your expertise on Indonesian clean energy procurement. I hope all of the people on this webinar learned a lot.